Hey guys, what's up? This is Leaf from Complexity, and you're watching the esports historian Thorin's YouTube channel.
Real Madrid have always been willing to pay a lot to ship what they really wanted overseas. But you don't have to, because as of right now, and until the 23rd of May, after 2 p.m. EDT / 8 p.m. CEST, GamerSupps have a free shipping sale going on right now. So you will get free shipping on anything site-wide and the usual 10% discount for using the code Thorin, THORIN, at gamersupps.gg. Now, I should really have made this video, being realistically, last year or actually months ago. I mean, I hinted at it on talk shows, especially Feed the Trolls and Steak and Batter, many times. Whenever we discussed Team Falcons, their roster moves, how good their lineups would be, and what the future of their roster was, I always pointed out over and over again what essentially has come to pass. But let's just codify it and get the video done, because it'll be a good touch point for the future, what I think about how their squad is going to progress and the model they're going to follow. So as of right this moment, Falcons are the second best team in CS2. Now, I don't care, by the way, what any ranking says or any kind of like ELO system or VRS. Those things take a while to catch up, and you have to get a certain sample size before they really hit the point where you get to, like, if you haven't noticed, when people actually are like winning tournaments, they don't become number one on the ranking immediately. It normally takes a month or two. So as of right now, they're listed as like number 4. But if you watch the actual game, the only team they can't beat is Vitality. And by the way, they're taking them the closest, most consistently. Meanwhile, the other teams that were the contenders with Vitality were obviously Mouse, who never beats Vitality. Falcons beats them already. And Falcons already beat Spirit with Donk, the reigning major champions. So as of right now, they're already the number 2 team in the world, even though they've only played, like 2 lands with this new roster. But despite that, they are already heavily rumoured. In fact, it seems almost certain that they will be signing another new player fairly soon. The Kioske guy, who's just another prodigy, the potential Dunk 2.0 of the Spirit Academy. So that might not make sense in the normal ecosystem of Counter-Strike and how companies in Counter-Strike operate their businesses and balance the margins. Because think about it. You've made 3 event finals in a row. One of them, admittedly, was a PGL Banana Cup without Vitality and Spirit and all the rest of them. What, you won that one, by the way, and that was with your old roster. Then you made the Modesty move. Massive blockbuster, earth-shaking signing that everyone should want to do, basically, unless you have, like, Z-Woot. Although the joke is, even if you have Z-Woot, etc., by the way, why not just put him on the rifle and have Modesty? In theory, almost every team should want to sign this player. It's just he's going to be incredibly expensive, and there's only certain places he can go to. So you make the move to sign Modesty. Now, you might just think to yourself, well, you know what? Wait a minute. We've already won the land Vitality wasn't at with the old roster. With the new roster, we're making the final, beating everyone except Vitality, and we're taking Vitality to 5 maps every time. And the first time out, Melbourne, we almost beat them. We had them on series championship point. In light of all that, why change roster? Why not just hold with this fight? See how this does for a while. See if we can get to number 1. And you know what? It's pretty cool to be number 2 after you've been shit for a while. No, because if you understand the point of this video and the title of this video, it's about how Falcons sees esports, I speculate, and the model that I speculate they are going to use based on all the things I've been hearing for years, because I've had insiders and I've heard about the people they could have gotten, why they kicked people, why they took other people, what the plan was, what they promised people, what they didn't live up to with their promises, etc., etc. So I have been able to drip feed info for the last year or so, basically, on this particular team, on my shows, and you see some of those things eventually come to play. Like I told you, no matter what Nico was going to join, there was no chance he ever did the whole, like, 1 more year, Monacy. Oh, that damn smile. He was never going to do any of that shit. That was never even on the table. In fact, you know what? I'll see how much I can say about this right now, but he was already basically a done deal, let's say, already during the time you were watching him win trophies with G2. How about that? How about them apples? So the key thing for me is when you ask yourself, why would they risk already a world-class roster? Why sign more players? And in fact, not only is it rumoured you're going to potentially like take out either Magisk or Tessus and put in Kioske, this like super prodigy, and have this like insane amount of skill. But the rumor even is, if you look at what they're currently doing, where like you're going to have Perfecto be your like sub, and people now know he's back, ready to play, and he was a fabulous player in what sort of a role? Oh, the exact sort of role that Magisk does in the team. There's even an implication, whether it's actually on the table right now or not, which is if Tessus or Magisk, not even if they don't play well, because Tessus is playing well, if they are basically the best player in that slot, they will either be replaced or it's always being thought that they could be replaced, and they're always drafting in who might be the next person to make a super team even more super and get it even better and level up and do upgrades on paper. Because the logic goes, yeah, you can fuck up a really good roster with an upgrade, but that's in isolation, and then you're stuck with that player and you have to still... No. What you're now going to see with Falcons, as I'll continue to talk about in this video, is I think they are just going to spam upgrades. So if they do an upgrade and it doesn't work, this is why I say they're like Real Madrid, they'll just get the next upgrade, mate, and they'll sell that player off, or he'll be on their bench, the most expensive bench in the world, and then they'll go and get the next guy. And that's the problem. In isolation, if you say, hey, careful, man, don't always upgrade, maybe that player brings something to the dynamic and the chemistry and the college, that does make sense in one case. But if I say to you, you either stick with what you currently got, which isn't the best, the situation they're in, or how about unlimited upgrades until you do get a good enough player, a good enough fit? Well, that is unbeatable. That is actually the hack. Because, spoiler, it's not a hack, is it? You just have to have infinite money, and you've already now got the superstar names that everyone wants to go and play with. Those are the two best reasons to go and play somewhere. And not only have you got infinite money for buyouts, you've got infinite money for salaries. Like, this is the ultimate, like, magnet to bring superstar players, HLTV top 20 players, actually top 10 players, let's be real, over and over again, and smash this roster until, much like a Real Madrid, you either have an insane galactic period where you don't win that much, or you're just going to win everything, and you're going to continually keep going back to the top. And the best thing is, if you're the Vitalities of the world, everyone might have been trying to, like, shadow box your era and downsize it, but like, are these teams, is Mouse really that good with Brawl and Agile? Spirit needs an upgrade. Well, Navi's dropped off and they've been too slow. Phase with the leash didn't work. That's not going to matter when this team's just spamming superstar names over and over again and you're beating them. It's going to make your accomplishment even crazier, isn't it? So to me, think about where Falcons was ages ago when they first became this team that we started to care about. They already existed, if people don't know. They basically had the players of Double Pony, that like French team with Body and Kenny S and MBK and all those guys. When they went from that team, the real move they did, that was like a statement of like, we're going to take over the world, was they obviously signed Zonic and Magisk from Vitality, who were the reigning major champions. Remember, people always forget the order. Zonic left basically around the player break, I think it was. So they'd already had, if you remember, they'd won I Am Rio, then they won that bullshit banana playoffs blast pit and Paris major, but it wasn't fucking major. Then people do forget they almost won the blast right after that, by the way, the spring finals, and would have done 3 events in a row, but they got beaten by Heroic last minute there. And then what happened was Zonic went to Falcons already like, wow, this is going to be enormous. He's just come from the best team. Now, admittedly, supposedly, as he said in my Reflections interview, he had been told he had to take a pay cut. So I understand why he did it as well. And they were promising him everything. But then what people forget is Vitality then went and played Gamers 8, now EWC, with Magisk still in the roster, won that event. So they proved they could even win without Zonic, believe it or not. But they benched Dupree in favour of Flames, or Flamesy, as it turns out all the commentators call him. I just call him Flames. And then Magisk went over to Vitality and then was replaced by Mezzi. And then basically, if you remember, the Mezzi lineup later that year went on to be the best team actually initially in CS2, took over from FaZe, won the last 2 blasts. But over in Falcons, that's actually where Zonic imagined he was now going to build his super team. He'd gotten Magisk, one of his boys, over, who you always implied could be a secondary caller. Maybe one day he could be the IGL. Who knows what their plans were with him. Then, obviously, he was going to get Nico. That is true, that story from Nell. The Nico deal was essentially all he had to do. He'd given he said yes, he'd written yes, everything was agreed to. He just had to literally sign on the dot, and he didn't do it. He came to the moment he's about to and just decided not to do it. So he came to sign the dotted line and he didn't do it. And in doing so, he absolutely fucked their whole org and roster for an entire year plus. Because the squad was, hey, Snappy and the Ents Core, want to come and play over here? Sorry about the whole Saudi thing. We can't keep Nerds, but don't worry. How about having Nico instead of Nerds? That's an amazing offer. Who wouldn't take that if you were Snappy? And by the way, miss me with that dogshit angle too, where you just watched Falcons with all the Ents players except Nerds play almost to a man except some Pious, worse than they did in CS2, And some Pius was worse, but I think it was because of the AWP and how early in the game it was. You saw them all play worse. And your logic is, you should have stayed in Ents on those lower salaries. Now, admittedly, they could have gotten a match comparable to Falcons for some of them. Hey, stay in Ents, a smaller org, without as many guaranteed spots, and definitely no ability to build super teams. Keep the same roster, and you would all magically have played identically the same. It's just the name Falcons. When you put the name Falcons on, you become shit. By the way, how's that aged? Doesn't Modesty still seem pretty cracked when he has a Falcons jersey on? It's weird how Nico puts a Falcons jersey on. Still just seems fucking amazing. So I don't get this thing where you're just hating on him just because it's Falcons. Like, what happened with that one? It was, they got a CS2 core that turned out it wasn't good in CS2. Okay, none of us knew that. That's hindsight, lesson learned. So after that, here's the problem I have. You already could have had potentially quite an exciting team if Nico had said yes. If you actually put Nico in the spot, forget nerds, that Boros had when they made that top 4 run at Katowice. Mate, you put Nico in that position. Look, I don't think that team would be as good as this Falcons, obviously, but that would be like a borderline top 5 team. That already would be top 10 definitely, but it could have been like a playoff team every time. It could have made the odd run. I don't even see why not. Could have made it to majors, etc. Now, they still, if you remember, early had a decent team with Boros because he was an idiot as a person, but I'll tell you what, he was very unprofessional, by the way. The things he did, he should 100% have been fired for. But the problem was, he did have skills. He could shoot people in the head, which his replacements, Dupree, couldn't to the same degree. And then Simple just came way too late. So, in my opinion, they actually did. If I one day reveal it, I won't ever say what he did unless he fucks up and says something stupid publicly. But let's just say the things he did, I actually think it was very professional of them to remove him. I just think the way they handled it was very stupid. And obviously, they absolutely hinted it with that fucking leak of the vlog, didn't they? Where it just showed, they're bullying him. Whereas if you knew the things he did, this guy didn't even get half of what he potentially deserved for his behaviour. And by the way, if I was in their org, I told some of them, I would just out it, mate. I'm not going to carry the bag for this dickhead for the things he's done. And by the way, I don't even dislike Boris as a person, but the things he did, he behaved like an actual dickhead. Like, even if sports people did what he did, that would be a grounds to be fired, put it that way. So to me, the Boris move, unfortunately, was so unprofessional that if you kept him and you had bad results, you'd feel like a fool because he just goes against the ethos of what you're trying to build in a world-class org. But by kicking him, you always were going to lack firepower. And after even 3 months, you could just tell the firepower wasn't there. Then I think Zonic mega fucked up, which is, I always thought the real move then was either like the simple one, you just make the simple loan, but you make it a long-term thing and you gamble big then, like FaZe has, or you just go and get a young talent. You get the next Boros, but without the baggage, and you bring him in. Could have been all sorts of players. And I've even heard they tried to get Malbs, but maybe the org couldn't get him, etc. before he went to G2. You go and get a player like that, then you plug him in, and then what you do at that point, you're probably not going to be number one, is you're just trying to see which other players work. So the issue at that point in time was, they weren't doing what I'm saying they're doing in this video now. They weren't doing the Real Madrid approach. They weren't doing the Galacticos approach of spamming massive big names and superstar talents over and over again. Because one, they didn't have Nico. So there wasn't the person to attract you that you wanted to play with. So Modesty's not going to say yes without Nico. In fact, it turns out Yimfat's not going to say yes without Modesty. So you have this whole like house of cards that you can't build the first cards in because Nico hasn't said yes. Now you might think, then why waste all that time? Because the Dupree signing was very silly. That was only ever a stopgap. And I think that was crazy copium from Zonic and or Dupree thinking he could ever have played Star Rifler again. They did the right thing, resigning him to just being like an entry player at the end of Vitality. And they did the right thing, absolutely, by gambling and replacing him with Flames as an upgrade. A great example of a risky but well-calculated upgrade that I don't think you get this era now with Vitality if Dupree's still there. I'm sorry, he wouldn't be on the same level as Flames is. Then you've got to add in the stopgap thing. Then you did the simple loan, but that just came way too late. The rest of the roster was basically dead at that point in time. Everyone knew I'm just playing to try and keep my job now. Morale was crazy terrible. And even though, if you ever watch those games, flip a coin. Every time it lands heads, he actually does a mega rating and does a whole bunch of crazy shots that make you go, whoa, he's back. Then flip a coin again. Every time it lands tails, he just added a meh map. But the whole time, whether he went off or didn't, his team played like absolute shit and never had a chance to win the games. It was actually pathetic how bad they played. So then you come to the whole Nico. It's rumoured he's going to join towards the end of the year. I'll just say it right out. He was always going to join. It was basically guaranteed in the second season Nico would be in Falcons for 2025. Now, I know for everyone else it was an ongoing drama of like, oh, but look how he's doing with G2. What if he wins the major? But him and Modesty get along so well. No. He was always going. He was always going that entire second season. I would even speculate further that I think the only reason they even had that scuffed snacks roster and they were just messing around with like letting fucking people stay in the squad. It's because they knew the roster was dead. They were evaluating who's going to be in the next G2, or who do we take temporarily that doesn't cost that much. That's like a small gamble that can just do the job and sit bombs in seats and press mouse buttons with a G2 jersey on until we figure out, is Modesty actually going to definitely leave? Because initially, remember, he turned down the Falcons offer. So for my money, that part was another issue. A lot of people don't know this. I'll just say it right now. Nico twice fucked Falcons. Look, they'll take it now because he joined the team. He's now winning them trophies. He's getting them into contention, right? But he fucked them last end of 2023 by wrecking their roster basically for 2024. And then I'll just say it, for a whole bunch of 2024, he was basically just wasting their time. Like, let's just say he was going to come, definitely, but he was just like, it seemed like he was delaying when he was going to come. And as a result, they were just sat there like, are you coming? Are you not? When are you coming? Why are you coming now? Are you coming next month? And it almost reminds me of the Device situation in NIP, where the players in NIP were like, well, when's Device coming back? And the management were like, oh, pretty sure next month. And then it never happened ever. And a year later, he actually left and went to Australis. In this case, at least Nico eventually arrived in Falcons. It's just the problem is, if you were, I mean, the obvious person is fucking Snappy, who was promised Nico at the beginning. Yeah, you don't get shit, mate. You don't get any of that. Like, he does come eventually, but you don't get to enjoy that, even though you're judged on a team that should have had him in. So, okay. So then you get to him finally joining now. And this is the key thing, because once you got Nico, that's why I already started spamming this point on all my shows. Everyone else said, but Nico isn't enough though. Yeah, but look at the squad. You're not going to win trophies with that team. Yeah, and all you did, that same thing, didn't you? You all said it was only because of money. Oh, Nico's, what a sellout bitch. He just left for money. Really, Nico? Is the bag worth it, Nico? The bag, says the generation that justifies everything their favourite sports star and celebrity and influencer does just off them having the bag and having loads of money. Yeah, he's a fucking Lambo, mate. I'm pretty sure he doesn't care what you think. But then magically, Nico's supposed to give a fuck what you think when you don't know anything about the industry and assume because you've heard he has a giant salary, that's the only reason he's joining. By the way, yes, it's a way bigger salary than G2. He also gets fucking Sonic as a coach that he respects and has beaten him many, many times and established the greatest era ever right during Nico's initial prime. And also, maybe you didn't get it, I did the whole time, he was always going to have a super team built around him. If that wasn't Modesty, it'd be some other cracked out AWPer. Maybe it would have been Simple. Maybe it would be someone other, a fucking unbelievably great player that would join that team. So to me, there's a lot of obvious reasons Nico joined, and I think he's going to have the last laugh on all you idiots that said he should have stayed in G2. He wouldn't have won any fucking majors in G2. Look how G2 was building the roster around him for years at that time. They were always leaning on him like a crutch for what an OP rifle he was, basically like a mini secondary IGL2, as well as like a supportive rifler with a playmaker rifler with a big fragger, with like not always the biggest big game player, but like half the time a pretty fucking amazing big player and a guaranteed top 10 HLTV player every single year. You can't build winning rosters around that. Well, then I don't have any faith in your org, just like Nico and Modesty. I say I'm out. I'll go elsewhere where they have all the money and they have the actual vision to build a bait squad. So then they got the heroic core to go with Nico, didn't they? Right? Almost immediately. People forget this. It was just the results that looked dodgy. If you ever go look at the games, immediately they were competitive with the top 10 teams in a way the 2024 roster never was. Then at the PGLs, the Banana Cups without all the elite teams, they were already making runs where they could have won both of them with the different rosters. And that culminated in winning PGL Bucharest. Now, yes, that was with the dead Dexter roster, blah, 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 blah. But it showed that wasn't a bad roster on paper. Like, if that roster still existed to this day, they'd be top 10 clearly. You think about where, like, Aurora and Mongols are who can't win in the playoffs. They'd probably actually, I think, have been like a 6th or 7th best team by about now, consistently. And then the difference is in playoffs, they'd get the bump up because the Aurora and the Mongols of the world would drop down a little bit, wouldn't they? So at that point in time, the problem they would have had is I do think they would have struggled with Vitality, Mouse, Spirit, and then I think they'd have been on a similar level to Na'Vi, although assuming Na'Vi now, maybe they'd be a touch better actually. So they'd have been within touching distance, but they wouldn't have lifted trophies except at PGL Banana Cups. So then you consider people were already acting at that point in time, like, because they weren't already top 5. It was a mistake. The roster's wrong. What a waste, Nico. Low Falcons. Another we eating good today, Falcons haters. By the way, that aged really poorly. What you missed as well was this. The second Nico did sign on the dotted line, this is literally what I knew would happen with Falcons. I didn't know they'd already been all the files immediately. I thought like top 4 would be a good starting place. I even thought top 4 at the majors is kind of a good place to shoot. Well, they're already made it to second place, and they're already basically that far from beating Vitality. The reason why is you've got Nico. Once you have Nico, loads of money, and Zonic, you can attract loads of players to play with you. Then when you add Monacy, it's game over. You are now the most attractive team in the world, unless Vitality kicks someone out and says to the player that's potentially going to sign, we've got exactly your role set up, mate. If that's not true, Falcons is the next best team you can join for any player in Counter-Strike right now, assuming they're going to speak English. So what's crazy for me is, everyone also then got shocked that they did get Monacy. Remember, the top 2 player of 2025, a guy who was smurfing in all the fucking playoff games and looked like the next Simple, a player you must sign if you can. Not only did they get Monacy, he's already played with Nico, so to me it was a slam dunk. Not only do you sign him, but he's going to be good immediately. They've just played together. They look like fucking Kobe and Shaq, where you can just give them any teammates and they'd have a chance to win a game. That's how good these guys are. And then what happened? Right out the gate, they really did almost beat Vitality and end all the streaks and win the first event and potentially, like, deny the Grand Slam and all that. Like, that was all right there on the table immediately. Incredible stuff. Even better than I even imagined. So let's talk about this for a second. So despite being, for me, a clear number 2, you've already beaten Mouse and Spirit, the other contenders. You've almost beaten Vitality. You're still going to make more moves. That's why this video exists. Because if the moves are, you're going to get Kiosk gear for Tasses or Magisk, or then you're going to get Perfecto or Yimfat for Magisk or whoever it is, whatever order and angle you do it in, whatever dimension you want the team to initially display when you bring Kiosk gear in. If you're going to keep this approach, which I think you are, this is why I've made this video. Because this model is unlike anything else anyone in esports does, except maybe if you know some of the top League of Legends teams in China that have had like tens of millions of dollars to make super teams. They've maybe done an approach similar to that, but even then they sometimes end up with who the hell's that guy? It's like the 5th name, and it's just some weird like chemistry thing, or they already had him inside the org. This team is going to be like Real Madrid, because nobody else in the game has the infinite money pipeline. Everyone else has to like have years where they spend big, but then they've got to get the results immediately. If they have a player that's like good enough and borderline, they'll tend to stay with him, a la Spirit, a la Na'Vi, and give him more time. Team Liquid's given people years who are mediocre fucking tier 1 pros or could never be elite. Most teams are going to try and balance out, like, we're going to spend a bit to have players to excite you and make you think the potential is to win, but we're going to be also quite shrewd in terms of not spending too much or unnecessarily. That ain't Falcons. Falcons is only about promoting Falcons and the Saudis. They're only about exposure. They want to be established, like at the EWC, as we're the biggest org in the world of esports. We're number 1 in Counter-Strike, in this game, in this game, in this game, Dota. We want to be number 1 in all of them. So as a result, they've got a different approach they're going for. In the same way as you could argue, I actually don't know that much about Real Madrid to know if this is true. If Real Madrid's main goal wasn't even just win La Liga, which they're not as good at Barcelona, but it's to win the Champions League, in theory the best club competition in the world, then they've killed it. Their approach has worked long term. Because the Real Madrid Galacticos model is the idea that you just sign superstar names and you stack them, even if normally you'd have 1 or 2 of those players max in your team and the whole team would be based around them. So if you think of the first really famous class of the Galacticos, it would be, because if you remember, it had to be when they like loosened up the amount of players you could have as foreigners. I think you'd only have something like 2 back in the day in La Liga, but then you were allowed to have more. So they had that class where they had Zidane, where he was like a Ballon d'Or level winning player, Figo, Ballon d'Or winning level player, Ronaldo, R9, Ballon d'Or winning player, Nazario. Then remember, then they flanked them. By the way, each of these players on their own should have been like a Titanic superstar player on the teams they were on. Like Zidane was on fucking Juventus, Figo was on Barcelona, Ronaldo was on, well, technically Barcelona as well, but you know, the different era. These players on their own should be the superstar. Then they had players that were the star players of other teams at less level just around them. They had like David Beckham from Man United. They had fucking Steve McManaman from Liverpool. They had Roberto Carlos in defense. They had an unbelievably cracked out squad. What's funny is the first era Galacticos didn't even win as much as it was supposed to. But you know what? That approach that they stuck with and kept doing over the years, yes, in the middle, you had to have Mourinho come. He could be the Zonic figure in this case and laid the foundations. If you look at a lot of the people he signed early on, those were the seeds of the Ramoses and the Modric, those players that later on would become the top player. The key thing is the latter era of Galacticos, basically, nobody's had that level of success in the Champions League. Think about the one where they had Ronaldo, R7, like the best player in the world. They had Benzema, by the way, he also won Ballon d'Or later. Questionable one. They had Modric, who got that scuffed Ballon d'Or that he stole from Ronaldo because people fucking love Messi. They had Bale, who was one of the best like wingers and attacking players in the entire world. Remember when he hard carried fucking Wales through that like Euros or whatever it was? This guy was unbelievable. So the key thing about the Real Madrid approach is this. It's not about having enough or like we've got good, but it's about having the most. It's about saying, you know what, I want all the good players. Every good player I can get, every elite player. Get me the best players in every position I can get for the money that I have. And by the way, there's even an angle people miss on that, which is an added implied bit of value to start adding a superstar to your team is you deny them of another team. So in the same way as now, if you're Falcons, you don't have to worry about G2. Monacy's gone, mate. That G2's cooked. Well, you can do that with all these, like, Zidane doesn't have to. If you have Zidane and it's the early 2000s, then I'm going to go, cool, I'll get Figo. Oh, but you've already got Figo as well. Well, fuck, can I have, I don't know, David Beckham? Oh, you got Beckham as get. Well, fuck, who's available? Like, at that point, there's no one left, is there? There's no one left. So I also think there's added value to doing that as well. And then, by the way, I'll just put this out there. I also think this even applies to Zonic. So if you're mad at Zonic and you think he's a fraud and he's going to be exposed as he only wins because he has these players, oh, don't worry. If he doesn't get the appropriate level of success with these players, I think eventually, much as it happened to Snappy, who had all the promises, I think Zonic will get replaced. He will get, I don't think he will be, but if he does badly, I think they will consider him to be replaced by a superstar coach as well, whoever that might be. It's going to be a very different style of coaching job and different organisation to anything you've ever seen in CS before. So first of all, the Nico and Monacy move, I think, was so smart because this is a different model. They're not trying to run their org for profit or to be efficient or to simply take up space. They're trying to brute force number one. And if you can't get Ziwu, Donk, Monacy's the next best player. He's already played with Nico, who's the next best non-AWP player available. And Nico has secondary calling aspects in the mid-rounds. And they've played together. And Nico's one of the most durable all-time great pros. And Monacy's right hitting his absolute peak as a superstar. That's a slam dunk to sign those players. Yeah, it's going to cost a bazillion, gajillion in salary, in buy. Yeah, but it's worth it. That's the move you do. And the key thing, if you're those two guys, is it was so smart for you to move to this team. Because now you just get to sit there, click the mouse, and they will take care of the rest for you. They will put superstar teammates around you in a way G2 never did. They won't go, oh, sorry, mate, you have to play with snacks for these next season or two. Oh, sorry, I know we said we'd bring in this player, but actually it turns out Nico's staying, so we're going to... You don't get any of that. They're just going to put the best players around you and get ready. The best players are all going to want to join the team now. Think about it. They have Nico. You can almost not get a better rifler, especially a veteran. They've got Monacy, again, how many players are better than him in the world? You've got Zonic, who I can guarantee still holds a lot of respect with other pros, and when they keep making finals, is going to quickly get that stock's going to go right. The stocks are going to be through the fucking roof again. All those people, and you have the biggest salaries in the world, and you can pay crazy buyouts, and you can even play buyouts where it's like the org's clearly going, I don't really want to sell him, so whatever, here's a number twice as much as I want. But you said yes? Shit. Even if I don't say yes now, I should at least say 2.5. You said yes to that? Oh, well, I have to do it more. Since I'm running my company as a business, I have to say yes. It wouldn't make sense for me not to. I should say yes, even if I'm selling you a Monacy, and I should gamble with that money on the next Monacy for less money and make my budget make sense. That's what I actually should do. So Falcons is playing a different game in the same way as Real Madrid is playing a different game. They're not trying to go for efficiency like a Liverpool or something like that. They're not trying to rely on scouting. They're trying to go for the most obvious slam dunk, low-hanging, sign this player. They're the best players right now, even with the prodigy angle. They're just going to do that approach. And how can that fail if you have enough money and enough options to keep cycling and to keep pressing gamble and keep pressing upgrade? It might not work once. It might not work twice. It might fail half the time. But you're going to keep doing it until it just eventually works. And then you're going to win the trophies, aren't you? So in my opinion, in a space where moves now seem to happen way less because of buyouts and all the thing of like, does the player want to go? But only if this player's there, but I don't want that player to be there. And if he's still there, then I don't think I'll join. And maybe I'll stay in this other team. Oh, but maybe I'm actually going to go. Maybe in this world, Falcons makes it easy. Do you want to join a team with Nico, Monacy and Zonic? Do you want to get paid the biggest salary in the world and tell us what your buyout is? They've hacked the system because they've got the infinite money glitch. So they're going to be the Real Madrid of Counter-Strike. And I expect them to have similar results as a Real Madrid does in football. Oh yeah? You and whose army? Well, how about the Skrilluminati for one? They're the people who support my content. This video was kindly supported by The Concept, Matt, Pugnatio, Rajcula, Thorin, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Jasun, Banediesel, Animosity, and you know it, everyone does. A special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion, for the long-term support. Do you want to ask a question for my AMA videos? Would you like teasers? Find out what upcoming guests I've got? Want to suggest a topic or a guest? Maybe you want to be part of one of those 1 hour lengthy online discussions I do where the topics are set by you. Well, if any of these perks or more tickle your fancy, I think you know what to do by now. Put your money where your mouth is and join the Skullluminati, where Patreon link in the description below.